We're at the front of the Dino today talking about one of the most important annual maintenance tasks, and that's flushing the coolant. The iron block, the aluminum heads, the copper and brass and the radiator, as well as stainless steel running around the cooling system, offer a lot of ions and a lot of galvanic action. So you must change the coolant regularly in your radiator system. About how often? Well, let's take a sampling by emptying the radiator. When you 3 years since we did a complete cooling system revamp, everything hanging off of the engine, all hoses, tunnel hoses, engine hoses, heater hoses, and the breather hoses were replaced. New header tank, new heater valve, new thermostat, new T's, and the radiator here, as well as the heater boxes, were sent out to Sanchez Radiator for disassembly and rodding and coring. So everything's top shape, but still you can see we're getting a little bit of rust. That's from the engine. One of the detriments of the Dino is the number of materials running around the cooling system. Iron block especially, aluminum heads, you have copper and brass in the heater boxes, stainless steel running around, aluminum T's, and all sorts of materials in the heater valve and the thermostat. So, how often should you change your fluid? Well, I would drain the radiator once a year. There are 5.3 gallons in a dry Dino system, as you saw from my effort 3 years ago to restore this whole system. And let's see how much we get from one draining of the radiator, and let's check out what condition it is. There are 3 critical fasteners on the Dino that should only be lightly tightened, less than 5 pounds. One, of course, is a 24 millimeter transaxle fill plug, but here on the radiator we have both the stopcock and the petcock. See, this should be opened very easily. You'll notice there's a copper crush washer on there as the unit heats up, and it does heat up quite a bit. As it heats up, it expands and tightens down on the fitting. So in the future, you'll find that all of the fittings will tighten up, even though you think that you're just lightly tightening them. Now let's go to the petcock on the driver's side.
All right.
On the driver's side, we can look down and see the petcock there. What you'll notice is when it flows out, it's going to point directly at our radiator, and more importantly, the bodywork that is underneath the radiator. And I don't like that ability to have standing water on any piece of the metal of the Dino. So I use a little shield here. It's an old thin piece of aluminum. It actually was a sign. Taking my drain pan and putting it directly under the petcock opening, and then using my sign here as a shield. I put it in front of the bodywork and into the pan. With our piece of metal shielding the radiator, and more importantly the bodywork below the radiator, we can now open our petcock. This is just barely tight, like the stopcock is, and let the coolant flow out. To help draining, you can go up to the stopcock and open this further. Again, both of these fasteners should be finger tight, but have fresh crush washers on them. Go to the back of the engine compartment and remove the radiator cap. Out, the coolant drains out. Get a look at the color and the condition of it. This is actually looking pretty good. I have had 3 other samples of this which had a lot of rust in them, and now it looks like we're finally clearing out the engine. All right, I pulled the sample out, and for clear water and the green press down, it actually looks pretty good. There's a little bit of rust, but I have done 3 other radiator flushes. Now, this is pulling 1 gallon out, and when I originally started with a dry system, including a dry block, I was able to put 5.3 gallons in. So it's not looking bad, but stay tuned for next week, and I will show you how to do a heater system cycle flush. All right, so once the coolant piddles out there, shut the petcock off and dry off the area around it and recycle the coolant responsibly. For the petcock here, I'm going to leave it open to the and back, and as I add water to the radiator header tank, air will be forced out of this location. All right, so we're back at the engine, and we have the header tank that we're going to start filling up with distilled water. And I'm going to do one more flush, so I'm going to use only distilled water in this. But for a final, when I come back, drain the radiator again, I'll get about 25% of the system out by doing that. I will do a final add of pure green coolant. All right, we have another gallon going in. The header tanks are rather odd in this. They're not an overflow situation, but they're actually part of the pressure regulation system. So when it overflows, there's no catch tank for it to go to. What you'll also find is these have an equilibrium level. At some point, it's going to stay high above the level. And let's go up to the front. This is where we want to check our bleed screw. And it is leaking water now, so we will tighten this up. And close this up. Now, a word about this system. This is not an overflow tank. This is actually part of the system. And as it heats up and expands, it will kick out. Now that I've topped it up all the way, it will kick out water on an expansion cycle. As you drive the car, probably the next 3 cycles, it'll be kicking water out. So as you get out and you come back, maybe 30 minutes later, there'll be a puddle of water underneath the passenger side rear tire. After that, it'll find an equilibrium. As long as you don't open the cap or add water or anything, it'll find its own equilibrium and then no longer spit water out. But the result will be about a half-filled header tank. People look at that who don't know Dinos and go, oh my goodness, something's wrong. No, that is absolutely normal. Now, if it continues to spit out more and more water, you need to inspect your radiator cap for seal problems or issues. These are not expensive. The 2-ear cap is correct, the Italian one, and they do work on the Dino. Right, tighten the cap here. The stopcock and petcock are already hand tight. And we have completed an annual coolant flush. That takes about 1.5 gallons out from what I added in. And the system from dry is 5.3 gallons. So about a quarter of the system is emptied by doing this annually. If you have any rust color in your water, if you have any ugliness, change it fast. The cooling system is a critical maintenance item on a Dino. Now, the last 2 flushes I did off camera before this, both had rust components, so I was a little bit surprised not to see it on this. And that would lead me into next week's video, where I'm going to show you how to do a major heater circuit flush. So stick around and come back to the Club Dino USA, and we'll show you how to do easy DIY maintenance.